My name is Elizabeth Evans, and I'm a homeschooling mom to 4 kids, ages 2 through 9, and we are learning how to make joy normal.
My name's Bonnie Landry, and I want to welcome you to season 2 of our podcast, Make Joy Normal. We want to thank everybody for their support and how much you've shared this podcast with your friends and those who you think it would be helpful for. I am a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a grandma. I've been homeschooling for 30 years. My kids are ages 14 to 33. I only have one at home now. I'm a speaker, a writer, a blogger, and I guess we're podcasters now, Elizabeth. And I'm an advocate of joy. So welcome to our podcast. Good evening, ladies, and welcome. Elizabeth, I want to introduce you and our readers to Jena Love. I came across Jena on Instagram, and I just really fell for what she does because she really promotes a beautiful home, what a home can be, simplicity in the home, and the vocation of motherhood. So I'll introduce her a little bit, and then I'll let her tell us a bit more about herself. So Jena is an organizing specialist who teaches women efficient homemaking and organizing systems. In 2019, she traded in her corporate spreadsheets to become a full-time homemaker and homeschooling mom, while supporting women in their pursuit to create peaceful homes for themselves and their families. When not organizing or writing about organizing, you'll find her trying not to spill her coffee while reading aloud to her active curly-haired kid, who is adorable.
Thank you.
She is how old?
She's 6.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. So if you can sort of just start by just telling us a little bit more about yourself and kind of what led you to this, that would be awesome.
Well, I was actually working full-time all my life, but in 2017 was when I decided to start doing organizing on the side, just
right.
feeling like that was something that I was being called to do. Of course, I had my daughter at the time, and how old was she? She was turning 2. And that was around the same time that my husband and I found out that we had secondary infertility. So we've been together for the last however many years now.
Yeah.
So that is why we only have one. We'd like to have more, but she's our only one, which is good in a way because I had to spend so much time with her.
Yeah, there's a beauty in that.
Yeah, it's also a challenge though of having just one because you're the one who has to entertain them all the time.
Yes, right. Exactly. Yeah, that's a whole podcast episode we should do. I've had people ask me about that. What if you're homeschooling and only, what does that look like? So yeah, we'll have to do that one of these days. Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Okay, so what was your background?
So I actually was in corporate media. I was doing research for television. Yeah, so I mean, it was interesting, and I developed this love for spreadsheets. I will always, from now on, love spreadsheets. But,
I'm just like mind blown when you say stuff like that. How can you love that? I don't know.
Yeah, so I like have all these spreadsheets on my computer because I just can't get enough. But all that organizing there, I've always loved just organizing in general. So. That's just part of who I am, I guess.
Well, can you tell us
where are you from? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Well, you go first. That's a good question.
Just tell us where you're from, and then Elizabeth has a question. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm in Temecula, California, which is about an hour north of San Diego.
I know so many people in Temecula.
You know what? I was thinking, because I knew you lived in San Diego, so I was like, we probably know some of the same people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I know a lot of people that go to, I think it's St. Martha's Parish. If
that's my parish.
Okay, we probably know a lot of the same people.
Probably.
You guys will have to compare notes.
Right.
Oh, that's great. Okay, Elizabeth, you had a question.
Yeah, so can you tell us about Rooms Need Love? What services do you provide?
So Rooms Need Love is the organizing business that I started. It's the home of all the blogging, trying to teach people how to organize, because I know that's a big struggle. That was something that a lot of people, even before I started, would ask me, oh, what do you do for this? And what do you do for that? So just wanted to start teaching people because I could see how it's it's just a struggle for so many. And it was
Yeah.
a gift that I had that I wanted to share with others. So I do a lot of one-on-one work, which I really love to do. That's before the pandemic, I was doing in-home hands-on organizing, which I'd love to get back to doing. But lately I've been doing a lot of virtual organizing where I create a plan for people, meet with them online and help them get started, and like just really break it down step by step, because the hardest part for a lot of people is figuring out where do I start and how do I even start.
Oh yeah.
And then the next step after that was the number one question I get is, how do I stay organized? So I ended up creating a course on just the systems and rhythms and habits and things that you need in order to stay organized once you finally got in it that way. Because I'd seen with a lot of my clients where I'd come in, I'd help them organize, and I'd come back a week or two later and everything would be undone. And so I had to figure out, how do I help them to prevent that from happening? Because it's frustrating, and it's also expensive to have somebody come back and do it all over again.
Yeah.
So the answer to that was creating a course that taught them how to create these habits and rhythms and routines that just keep you organized.
Right. I have to just talking about your website for just a moment. I really like, the name is great and many layered. So why don't you tell us about the name Rooms Need Love, because there's so many layers there.
Well, I was thinking, it's funny, my husband is actually Dr. Love, and he's an optometrist. So people are like, really, is that really your name? So I had to do
The Love Doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So I had to do something fun with the name Love, and it took a while to kind of figure out, well, what should I do? And I figured, how about Rooms Need Love? So like, they need me, but they also need a little bit of love from you to help make them a place of love and joy. And
Yeah,
right?
I love it. It's amazing. Yeah, it is a great name. And you've just got to check out the website because it's really beautiful. Like, your website, to me, I look at it and I think, oh, peaceful and calm, right? It's like their website, oh, who's the gal? Be More with Less. Who's the gal? Do you know who I'm talking about?
I think so, yeah.
She's all about simplifying your clothing. And you go on her website and you just feel so peaceful just being there, because most websites kind of come at you, right?
Yeah.
So it's absolutely a confidence builder just to go on your website. So what, you've alluded to sort of like some of the background that you had, your desire, your love of organization. What sort of corporate skills are you finding kind of really helped you with doing what you do now?
Corporate skills. I never thought about that.
Like, how do you go from the spreadsheet to the blueprint of a home to make order happen? I guess that's my question.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it was what I was doing in corporate. It was like a lot of the same thing over and over again. I would come up with these systems for creating these big research reports on Excel spreadsheets.
Right.
And so I think because of that background, I realized I needed to create different frameworks and formulas for organizing your home. And so that's what I've done. It's the same thing every time. Maybe it's a little different depending on what space you're organizing, what you're organizing, but it's pretty much the same thing. That's how I keep it. Yeah, I keep it simple. Like, I don't want to reinvent the wheel every single time. If I can just do the same thing every time, that makes it a lot easier.
So developing formulas, that's really interesting, because I know for me, gaining order over my life was a big deal. I grew up in a, kind of a very disordered, I'm a loving home, but a very lot of disorder. And so I had no idea how to do anything. And it took me a few years to get on my feet with that, but ultimately was developing systems and structures. Because I'm a very spontaneous person. And in my life, I thought, okay, having anything, the word routine, that was kind of like a dirty word to me, or system, structures, all those things. And so that sort of shackled me for a long time. But once I realized that routine is actually the way that you can have spontaneity, right, without your life falling apart, that was really important to me. So yeah, awesome. Okay.
Well, so one thing I'm wondering is, because if I were to hire you to come into my house, you're obviously not going to clean these areas. You're going to help me organize. But these areas that I need organizing are just so out of order, and like, I don't want to say unclean or anything, but it's just like, I'd be so embarrassed to have you come, like to see my laundry room that I cannot get organized, So like,
Yeah.
how do you go about, to really clean up a place, you have to organize it. So do you just kind of really come into the mess of life and help from there?
That's a
Oh
great
man,
question.
bless you.
Because most of us would be really embarrassed. Like I've done that with you
Mhm.
friends even, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, but that's how you get the job done. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what happens? Somebody,
Well, yeah, I have a lot of clients who they're like, "Oh, I don't want you to see my mess." I'm like, "No, I'm not judging you at all for this. Like, I know this is just part of it, and this is why I'm here. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to like judge your mess. We need to get you back on your feet so that you're not stressed out by the clutter and the mess anymore." And a lot of it, you have to be really comfortable with the person you're doing this with because it is a very intimate thing. They're like people are
yeah,
in your laundry room, they're in your clothes or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
um, just making sure that you're partnering with somebody who you feel comfortable with sharing those sorts of things
so
with.
how do you start to develop that relationship with people? Because obviously that's obviously a big part of this, right?
Yeah,
Developing a relationship.
yeah. I think a lot of it, most of the clients come from my website.
Right.
They get on and they start to get to know me a little bit, but you can sense when I get on the phone with them or we get on a video call, like you can just tell that it's going to work. You just have that
Right.
clue. And I don't know, I think it might be part of my personality too that just kind of makes people feel comfortable, which is feedback that I've gotten.
Right.
um I mean, I'm not for everybody, but a lot
Yeah.
of people they're like, I actually feel really comfortable with you. And that's something that I like to do. I like to listen to people's stories. Like as
Nice.
we're going through things, they'll come across something and they'll tell me this beautiful story about it. And it's just, I just love listening to those things. So a lot of times that's what people need is just to have somebody there to listen to their story. And then they're like, you know what, I'm okay to let go of this now because somebody heard me.
Yeah.
Or they realize, you know what, I
Interesting.
need to hang on to this because I
Yeah.
didn't realize how much it means to me. So I'm like,
Right.
yeah,
So when you're walking through this with people, um, what are what is the framework that you use to like to help them decide what to keep and what to not keep?
let's see. Well, I usually do not ask them. I never ask, what do you want to get rid of? Because
Right.
that just stresses people out. Like,
Right.
oh, what am I going to get rid of? So I ask them like, what are you going to keep? And it really depends on what we're organizing. Most of the time it's paper. I do a lot of paper organizing.
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have some guidelines that I use for figuring out which papers you need to keep. But yeah, we kind of listen and figure out like, does this mean something to me? Is it something that I can use? Is it something that I love? Have I really used it in the last year? Is it
Hmm.
is it something that I think I'm going to use? Or no, you know what? That's being a little aspirational. I'm probably not going to end up using it. So just kind of coaching them through that to try and like asking them questions like, is this exactly like, is it aspirational or
Right.
truly needed?
Yeah.
So
Okay, interesting. I don't know. I know I've talked about this book in the past, Elizabeth. The Sync Reflections book. Is that a book you ever read? Sync Reflections, either of you?
no.
No.
So the woman who wrote it, it was probably about 25 years ago now that she wrote it, but it's on simplifying your life, essentially simplifying your housework. And one of the phrases that she used that is still to this day I use is like, when you're trying to decide if you're going to get rid of something or not. And a lot of times we hang on to things because we think it's going to be useful or helpful to us later on, even though we already have 3 can openers. It's a perfectly good can opener. Why would I get rid of it, right? And her phrase that she used was, if you give it away, you can allow it to bless someone else. Right. And that changed everything for me. Because as soon as if I'm waffling about something, if I think, well, if it can bless somebody else, I just feel so much better about getting rid of it. I don't feel like it's just going out into the void to be some useless item to somebody. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That was a super, super good phrase for me.
Yeah.
Can you can you talk about the course a little bit and just sort of like how long is it? People are going to know want to know how much this costs as well.
Yeah.
So that would be really helpful just to let people know what the course costs, what private consultation costs, because I think we can work with it then, right?
Right.
This is in my
Right.
budget, not in my budget. Yeah.
Right. So the course, it's actually closed right now. It's going to reopen again in August, and there's a wait
Okay.
list for it. But it'll take you about 2 weeks to get through. It's really
Okay.
quick. I time it out so that you can do like every module within a couple of days. So very short, very quick, and
Okay.
you're implementing things as you go. So we cover how to create systems, routines, and rhythms. And then we start implementing some daily rhythms and routines in the second module. Then we start moving into like, here's how to organize, the actual organizing framework that I use. We go over an entire module on paper because that's a very big one for a lot of people. And then the
That
final
would be mine for sure.
yeah. And the final one is the big batching systems that I have for laundry, more on paper, and what was the other one? Oh, cleaning routines. So
Okay.
Okay.
yeah, and so
Okay.
that course is $197, and there's a payment plan for that also.
Okay.
Okay.
And then is there a wait list? Like, can people get on it,
Yes.
if they want to sign up in
Yes.
August?
So I can send you the
Okay.
link to that also.
Cool. I mean, money well spent, right? And then if people wanted a private consult, what is that?
So the consultations are free, just to get on the phone and make sure that it's going to
Right.
be a good fit. For virtual organizing right now, which is what I would imagine a lot of people are not in my
Yeah.
area, so they would want to do virtual. It's $197 per space.
Okay.
So, but you get the organizing action plan. We do a startup session, so I get on the video chat with you, and we just get you started because that's
Right.
the place you need to get over. You get recommended products just for your space, and then I give you a bunch of organizing cheat sheets, checklists, frameworks, all those types of things.
Okay.
But if you do 3 or more spaces, you actually get the homemaking systems overview as well.
Okay.
So.
Okay, cool. And so somebody could do that over time too. Like if it was
Mhm.
with, doing sort of all the spaces, would take, a lot of, probably eat a fair bit of most people's budget for sort
Yeah.
of getting their house together, but they could sort of space it out and do one,
Yeah.
even one each year or something, and then get on top of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, we strayed away off of all of our questions, but did you have any more questions?
Well,
That's good.
I am curious because so I think it's a really reasonable fee. You're giving a really good service to people that need it.
Yeah.
And I did hear you say you give like, was it container recommendations and stuff for organizing? So
Yeah. So yeah.
well,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just wondering about how much, I mean, I'm sure it varies based on how much stuff people have, but kind of what is that added cost? Could you estimate for maybe something very basic, like maybe a laundry room or something?
Well, usually I ask my client what their budget is for that
Okay.
space. And if it's a lower budget, I try to see if there's any way we can repurpose items that are already in your home, because I'm a big fan of doing that.
Good. Yeah.
Perfect.
So I have a lot, like one time my friends wanted to do a craft with a shoebox, and I'm like, I don't have any shoe boxes. I'm using them all around my house for
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So people know they're not going to have to go out and just spend a bundle on, the right kinds of bins or containers or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. This
So
is
that, I
good.
mean, if it's truly needed, I will find something within your budget. And it does
Okay.
take a little digging. So,
Yeah.
but I do
Okay.
find things because I'm like, I'm on a budget too. So I totally get it.
Right. Right.
No kidding. One of the things that I wondered, when I do what I do, like, helping homeschooling families to make joy normal, that's kind of my, the premise of what I do. So when I'm speaking and when I'm, podcasting or blogging or whatever it is I do, that keeps me on task, right? Especially when I had a house full of kids, kind of keeps me remembering why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I kind of wondered that with you, like, do you find this adds to your family life? I mean, you have a business going, and that's, that adds something to your family life, but it also, it can also in some senses take away from your family life because the time we put in. But do you find that it adds to your life because it keeps you on task?
I think so. I have to be very conscious of my time to make sure I'm
Yeah.
not spending too much time doing one thing and then not spending enough time with my daughter, because she's the
Yeah.
only one I have. So I'm like, I only have so much time with her, right, as a child.
Yeah.
But then it also makes me stop and like see these other issues that other people are having, like kids not knowing how to organize things. Like I've taught my daughter how to declutter her own stuff. So I've caught her at it. I'm like, we hang out way too much because she like she starts decluttering her own stuff. I'm like, oh, I didn't even say anything. And then just, I don't know, recognizing that, just seeing how people are like, oh, my spouse doesn't want to help me organize, and like just I see that a lot, and I'm like, well, how do I get my husband to help me? And it turns out that my personality just rubs off on him. I say the organizing bug is catching, so he tries to be a little more conscious of that. But I've also found that it's very much part of your relationship. It's communication and just having a good relationship with your spouse. So I see the problems and I go, well, what's happening in my life? So I think that's part of also my background and research of having to analyze, like, well, what's going on here? And then I can take what I have here at home and kind of try to figure out, well, maybe that'll work for other people if they apply it in their lives. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, the analyzing question is a good one, because I was wondering if part of what you do is analyzing the efficient way things operate, right? Like that's really important to me, especially because I had a lot of kids. Like I want to know that something's as efficient as possible. Like you pick up your this here and you do this with the this and you put this here. Like I want to know that things makes sense, right? That there's as few footsteps as possible, say, to be able to put things away or whatever. Do you know the show? What's the old show? Oh, Cheaper by the Dozen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the father in that the old one. The father is like an efficiency expert. Right. And so he does this with his kids. He does these trial runs with his kids about making things as efficient as possible. And that really struck me. I thought, gee, we waste a lot of movement, so is that something that comes into this?
Yeah. So, and that's one of the things that I actually teach is doing what I call a 10-minute tidy. So instead of like reacting, like as things are happening, you spend your time focusing on whatever that thing is. This actually came from when I was working full-time from home and had my daughter going crazy in our playroom next door. I'd be sitting there whipping out all my reports. I'd come out and the playroom would just be a zoo. So I would spend 10 minutes with her. We'd clean everything up and then I'd go back to work and she'd go back and do all of her stuff. So it wasn't like just reacting to everything. I would just batch it all into 10 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
Just stop because
to stay on top of it, right?
Yeah, you waste a lot of time if you just keep reacting, but then if you do nothing, you also end up wasting a lot of time at the end of the day because now you've got this huge mess you have to clean up, which is overwhelming.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that either. So it's finding that balance of like, okay, when do I clean? When do I don't? And then that's something that I also teach in the course of how to figure out when should I clean and when should I not.
Right. Okay.
There's
That's not only efficiency of the space, but efficiency of your time.
Right.
Cool.
There's a woman I follow on Instagram. I think her handle is Farmhouse Schoolhouse. So she's a homeschooling mom, and they every day have what's called a blessing hour. So it's the end of the day. Somebody's starting to get the kitchen ready for making dinner, putting books away and all of that kind of stuff. And, it's to wait till the end of the day to do all of that is too much, at least for my family. But it's something I've implemented for like the end of the day to clean up. It's like, okay, now it's time to put, everything you've gotten out this afternoon away. But when you call it a blessing hour, they take to that a little better than time to clean up.
Yeah.
Because you're all going to benefit, right?
Right.
It's funny because I called it a 10-minute tidy as well in our home. And what I did was I give each of my kids an area when they were young, and so the idea was that the main thing was we'd usually do it once or twice during the day. But if we left the house, because I got so frustrated leaving the house and coming back to just a big zoo. And so we would always do a 10-minute tidy before we left the house. Right. And that was a real lifesaver for me because I didn't feel like I was just like, oh my gosh, I come in and it's just a zoo. So each of the kids, or the partner up, an older and a younger one, you do the living room, you do the laundry room, you do the kitchen floor, whatever, just pickups. Right. Mm-hmm. And it meant we came home to a tidy house. And that was pretty life-changing for me.
Oh
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. And again, just part of the routine, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the thing, when you do it so much, you tend to stop noticing that you're doing it.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Yeah.
it's
It's
just,
fantastic.
yeah.
So then what would be the biggest blessing for you in this line of work?
I think getting to know all the people that I've met,
Mhm.
like being
Nice.
with them and hearing all their stories, that's just, it's so wonderful to be able to hear like these little things about people that you would never get to know if, like, just walking down the street and you meet somebody, you wouldn't know
Right.
know these like, really awesome stories that they get to tell you. And that's just been such a blessing to me. I love that part of this.
Yeah.
That's
It's
cool.
fantastic. I wanted to ask if somebody was, you said you had a payment plan. I kind of want to look at that because how can people spread your course over a payment plan? How does that work?
So I think I spread it out, instead of paying the full 197, I spread it out into, I think, 5 or 6 payments.
Okay.
Um, so it's once, so every 30 days you would make the payment.
Okay. Okay,
So
that's great because that would make it very doable for people, I think, in most
yeah,
cases.
yeah.
Yeah, and also just hang on to the end, people who are listening, because Jenna's going to offer us like a coupon code for your course, I presume, right?
For the meal planning and paper organizing courses.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and so that was actually something I was going to ask you. Do you do meal planning? Is that something you cover?
Yes, and it's funny because I
Okay.
know you guys talked about that recently.
Yeah, just recently. Yeah.
we did.
But yeah, I do, because with our infertility journey, we had to switch to a paleo diet.
Mm,
And when we did that, I was just like, I don't even know how to cook. Like, what is tapioca flour? I have no idea what that is. So I felt like I was learning to cook all over again. So I realized I needed to do something so that I wouldn't be overwhelmed by it. So obviously I went back to my organizing skills and created this meal planning system so that I would know, okay, here's what I'm cooking all week long, and like come up with a grocery list and everything. And that just made it so much simpler and easier when we were going through this super stressful time of trying to figure out
right.
all this stuff. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
where I came from.
If I
Wow.
can circle back to your question for a minute, Elizabeth, about what's the biggest blessing, what, I mean, it must be really interesting, especially, you obviously must be a people person, to be doing this kind of thing. What kind of people use your service? Like what, working moms, homeschooling moms, working couples, like what, or is there a big variety?
There's a big variety. Many times I'll get calls from people when they've gone through something very hard. Maybe they've
Okay.
lost a spouse, or maybe they're going through a divorce. Or sometimes, actually, my very, very first client that I ever had, her father had passed away, and she realized that she didn't want to leave her kids with this big mess that her father did. So she called me to have her come in and help her. So it's been very interesting. But then I've also had like just the moms who, you know what, I need help. So can you come in and help
Right.
me? So it's been a big variety, and it's been eye-opening to see these different walks of life and just see what people go through, and being able to help them and bring them into a better place, because it's amazing just having your home more organized. I can see the relief in them once we're done.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, my job is done.
Yeah, my in-laws they had a huge house, and they just sold it like about a week ago. Huge house, it's just chock-a-block full of stuff. Like there's, that era, they just keep everything forever. And then they got this they bought a little condo that's tiny, a fifth of the size of their house or smaller. And that's my husband comment. He said they just seem so much lighter, so much more relieved, because I think they know that they've been going through their stuff, but I think that they know it weighs them down, right? It's not stuff they use, it's not stuff they love, it's not stuff that's important to them, but it's there, right? And you have to deal with it, right? And so when you know that that's all going to be gone and your life is just going to be so much simpler because you live in a small space, right? What a gift to yourself, really. And especially in your elderly years, to be able to just know that life's just going to be simple, I think too, when we have a bunch of little kids, right, that's a very similar situation. You're taxed, right? You're taxed, you're not sleeping well, and, to be able to just simplify your life. One of the things that I've always found is that if my life is simplified in whatever way, whether it's education or my house or my clothing or, whatever my activities, that it clears more space in your brain
Mhm.
and you're more available, right? And that, I think, is the number one reason for doing any kind of simplifying, right? And what you're doing, I think, it's a beautiful gift. This gal, Be More with Less, who does it with clothes, it's a gift because it spills over into other areas, right? Because you just think, wow, here it's beautiful. A home that's orderly, or even a one room that's orderly, just feels so beautiful. You want to be there. Like, when you go through your kid's room and you toss out everything, and you get under the bed and do all that, and then they sit in their room for hours on end and just play
Yeah.
because it feels so good,
Yeah.
right? People must be so happy after you work with them.
Yeah, I think so.
I would love that.
Yeah. But I've noticed that with my daughter too. We clean up her playroom. She goes, "Oh, that's better." I'm like, "Yeah, the kids even notice it. Like they totally get it. So if they
Right.
notice
They
it, we
really
see it
do.
too." Yeah.
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
been kind of hardcore nesting, and we've just been rearranging our furniture in our living room. Like, this is the third time we've done it. And this last time I think is going to stick, but the kids were like, it's like a hotel room. And so they were playing hotel and everything. And I was like, what makes you guys think this is like a hotel room? And like, they couldn't pinpoint it, but it was just, there was something about it that just sparked imagination and play and comfort. And it was really cool.
I actually love rearranging rooms because it makes me declutter them. Like, I just think,
Yeah.
what have I got? That is not really serving any purpose. Why do I have this? So I enjoy that. My kids enjoyed it less, for sure. They wanted the things to be in the same place, but that's okay. Yeah. Where are we at with questions? Okay. So if people need help with their home, they come to you and they say, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. I'm just like, my life is just a giant mess. Where do you start? Where do you recommend that they start? Do you have to do some digging to help them find where to start?
Well, I ask them what. Well, I give them, okay, give me a list of the rooms that you would like to have me magically. If I had a magic wand, what would you want to be magically organized right now? Like, if you had to pick one, which would it be? And usually they could tell me, oh, my kitchen, oh, my papers, or whatever.
Right.
Okay, that's where we're going to start, because that place that's driving you the most crazy, that's going to make the biggest difference in your life if you work on that now. And so what I do is we'll take that bigger space and we'll break it into smaller chunks so that it's not so overwhelming. If you can break it into smaller areas, like, okay, here's this one drawer. We're just going to do the one drawer for now, or we'll just do this one cabinet. And it just makes it a little easier to consume and take in bite-sized chunks, because you're not doing way more than you think you can do in one day. You just do a little bit.
Yeah.
And especially if like I'm not there hands-on working with you.
Yeah.
Really overwhelming. Like, I can do a space pretty quickly. But when you're by yourself, it gets really hard and you're not sure what you're doing. Am I doing this right? And so I just say break it down as small as you possibly can. And it'll take some time, but I find it's better to do it that way than tearing apart the whole entire kitchen and you're like, oh gosh, what have I
done? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then the next time you go to do it, if you're in the habit of doing it, whatever, once a year or every 3 months or whatever system you set up, the next time doesn't take nearly as long. Each drawer only takes 5 minutes instead of 20 minutes, kind of thing.
Yeah. And if you are able to put into action these habits, these staying organized habits that I teach you, you don't have to do quite as much decluttering because you're doing it daily instead of just do it once a year and it's too much. So it's just kind of, I call it light decluttering, because you only have to do a little bit and you're not like really getting in there and getting dirty.
We can do a little bit. What about accountability? Is that something that kind of plays into what you're doing with people? Do you sort of have something in place that they stay on track?
It's definitely harder doing it over the internet.
Yeah.
So, because I can email you, and a lot of times, like, they forget to email me back, or
Right.
But I mean, I think also paying for the service kind of
That's a
makes
big
me feel like,
motivator for
oh
sure.
yeah, it's a motivator. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I paid money for this, I have to do it. But a lot of times if I'm working in person with somebody, they'll be like, oh, I really didn't want to do it, but I figured, oh, I guess you're coming over, so I guess we have to do it. And then when we're done, they're like, oh, I'm so much happier that we did this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how far do you drive for services,
Oh,
like
good
to help
question.
people?
Yeah. Right now I would say I stay within 20 minutes just because my daughter's so
Sure.
young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As she gets older, maybe I'll go further, but for now, about 20 minutes. But
Okay.
yeah.
Nice.
So back to the course for a moment, if you don't mind. If people sign up for it, and it runs sort of a 2 weeks, you're doing it in modules, how much time could they expect to spend sort of per day to kind of get there, right? Like for homeschooling moms, I'm imagining a lot of homeschooling moms would think, well, I want to do this, say, in the summertime when I'm not trying to homeschool my kids, but would it actually be doable during the school year, or how much time can we put in?
Yeah.
Like minimum. I mean, I know you could probably do a lot more than that if you had the
Yeah.
time or
Oh,
inclination.
yeah. I try to keep each module under an hour because I know that it's very
Okay.
So I think the longest that I timed it out, you could spend 50 minutes, but that's with doing some kind of decluttering kind of thing. Because most
Right.
you're watching the videos and then you're going and you're doing your daily thing and implementing what you learned.
Okay.
I want you to consume it really quickly and then just go do the thing.
Go do it. Okay. Yeah. And practice it for a few days sort of thing, or is that sort of a one-off thing they're doing?
No, I want you to keep practicing it. We
Right.
go through each routine and really, I give you a checklist of things, but I tell you just
Right.
pick one thing that you're going to do and
Right.
develop that habit of doing that one thing. Once you've got that down, you can start adding other things in, but really just do one thing to begin with. And that's going to help you so much more because those habits really compound. And
yeah. And it's one more thing than you had an hour ago done. Right. Like,
Right.
you have, I think you have some freebies on your website.
I do. I have a lot of freebies on my website.
Okay. And so do people sign up, like they sign up for a website and then they have access to the freebies?
Yeah.
I didn't look at them, so maybe you can tell us what they are so people know.
So the very first one is the 10-minute tidy checklist.
Okay.
So that's actually one of the ones that's in the course, so you can actually get like a free preview of what that checklist is.
Right. Okay.
I also have one for, it's my paper organizing cheat sheet. So you can know what papers are you supposed to keep, and I tell you a little bit about the paper hubs. What else do I have? I have a whole resource vault full of a bunch of freebies I've created over the years. So
okay.
Labels, there's a whole bunch of different checklists.
Okay.
Lots of fun things there. I also have a meal master list, which you can write down every single meal that you know how to make. So that way you just have a list of things to choose from.
That'd be handy because a lot of times it's thinking.
Idea.
It's being creative enough to think about what you want to make for dinner.
Well, it was actually
like, okay, I can only think of one thing to make for dinner.
Yeah, it was my husband's idea because I kept asking, what do you want for dinner? What do you want for dinner? And he's like, well, give me a list. I'm like, oh yeah, I should make a
menu.
List.
It's his menu.
So you can thank him for that.
I love it. Okay, so I think probably we have time for one more very quick question, but did you have anything else, Elizabeth, before I sort of do a wrap-up question?
I do not, no.
Okay, so what would you say for families, for moms, for dads, whoever, is the number one simplifying tip that you can give them? If there's one thing that you could do right now that would be simple to implement and would be, would change their life for the good, what would it be?
I would say develop a habit of putting things back where they belong.
Okay, yeah.
That's the thing.
So simple, right?
Yeah, it's one thing, like just find a home for it and just practice putting it back where it belongs. And I use something called the 1 minute rule. If it takes you less than a minute, just go do it right then.
Yeah, funny, eh? My daughter was working in a grocery store a few years back, like between college years and whatnot. and they had a little acronym, CYAG, clean, CAYG, clean as you go. And so she started doing that at home, so clean as you go, right? So as soon as, if you had dirty dishes you were baking, well, they would just go right in the hot water in the dishwasher, and before you did the next step of the baking even, right? And yeah, it was great to see her sort of implement this work ethic, at home, right? Clean as you go. And she'd say it to herself, Oh, it's awesome. Thank you so much. You were going to offer a coupon code for our listeners, so that would be great if you want to tell them about that.
Yeah, so the code is JOY, all capitals, 21.
Okay.
And I will send that to you also, Bonnie, so that you can put that in the show notes.
Awesome, yeah.
That'll be for the paper organizing guide called the Paper Hubs System, and then also meal planning mastery. So if you want to dig into meal planning, then there's that system for you there. And that's a 30% off code. I don't think I mentioned
Wow. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. That's very exciting. So we'll put that up. How long will that stay live for? That code, just
I'll leave it for a year. So
okay. Oh, fantastic. Okay. Yeah, people come back and listen to podcasts. Like it's interesting because even now our early podcasts, people are still downloading them every week. We have downloads, so that's fantastic.
I'll leave it for a year because I do that too.
Okay. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been absolutely lovely.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.